Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Alzheimer's Uncovered. Today we're going to be discussing the science behind Alzheimer's disease. We'll be diving into how it really works and how it affects the patient with Alzheimer's disease. We'll be showing you a visual on a whiteboard behind us to help you better understand how it works.
Thank you, Kenley. So let's get started with how Alzheimer's works. I'm just going to be talking as she draws, by the way. So it begins to develop way before symptoms are shown. At a basic level, brain proteins don't function as usual. These malfunctioning proteins disrupt the work of neurons. The neurons become damaged and lose connections to each other, eventually dying. The damage begins in the memory storing area, largely the hippocampus and other parts of the temporal lobe. Then it spreads in a predictable-ish pattern to other parts of the brain. This results in a shrunken brain.
Thank you, Avery, for that visual. Now to continue looking at a more detailed view of what really causes these memory malfunctions, beta-amyloid fragments clump together, which affect communication between neurons. The clumps get larger and form amyloid plaques. Tau proteins work in the inner support of a neuron and carry nutrients and other essential materials. These tau proteins can change shape and organize into neurofibular tangles and disrupt the transport system, causing damage to the cells. And how do these mass amounts of proteins come about in the first place? During translation, RNA may make errors in production or editing of the proteins, which results in a toxic protein like beta amyloid. This will disrupt the function of the brain.
That's just the basics of these two proteins. The beta-amyloid protein in Alzheimer's forms from the breakdown of a larger protein called the amyloid precursor. This protein comes in several different forms that connect between the neurons, like the beta-amyloid 42, which is very toxic. Abnormal amounts or levels of this protein clump together to form plaques that disrupt the cell function.
Also, Alzheimer's can be caused by neurofibrillary tangles, which are abnormal buildups of protein called tau that collects inside neurons. Healthy neurons are supported internally by structures called microtubules, which help guide nutrients and molecules from the cell body to the axon and dendrites. Tau in healthy cells typically binds to and stabilizes the microtubules. When abnormal chemical changes make tau detach from the microtubules and stick to each other, they form threads, which create tangles inside the neurons. This causes the neuron's transport system to be blocked, which negatively affects the synaptic communication between neurons.
Now that you know a lot about Alzheimer's on an internal scale, let's look at a more external scale and how it works in a person's life. This is a hereditary disease and can be passed through genes. This can cause people to revert to the language that they spoke when they were little. They could stop trusting loved ones, mood swings could start, agitation and paranoia or hallucinations are also common. They also lose some spatial awareness and struggle to do small motions.
Alzheimer's is clearly a very complicated disease, and scientists are still researching its possible cause and cures. It is important that we, as family members or possible victims of Alzheimer's, do our best to figure out what we can do to prevent it. We will be going deeper into that topic in our next episode, so you can make sure to stay and watch. Thank you guys for listening and taking time to learn about Alzheimer's. See you next time.
Thank you.